Hey everyone.
Hi. This is our video on conscious relating for couples, transforming distance and conflict into love. It is my honor and privilege not only to be married to Elicia, but to share with you some of what she's done. Her healing journey is really phenomenal, and I'll try to keep it brief. But she spent about 7 years doing her own healing, and this included moving to Thailand rather abruptly and spending 2.5 years there where much happened. Recently, in the past few years, she's put together a really great model on core emotional healing that gets to the core of the real sources of people's emotional self-esteem, problems with purpose in life, many things that are very helpful. And it's a very powerful model. It includes the inner child work and much more. And if there's anything you want to add.
It's a great introduction.
Okay.
So I am honored to have found my soulmate and married Doug Miller, PhD. He's a forensic and clinical psychologist, licensed.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's been working with the other side of what we do, really, for a long time. Of like the end result of not doing this conscious relating is custody cases, and how painful they were for everyone involved. The going from two people who loved each other to hating each other and suing each other and making false claims just to get the kids, just to get money. I mean, it's been nasty hearing about these cases.
Usually when I get them, they're usually worse cases. Hopefully none of y'all will have to ever go through anything like that. But it did give me insights into what can happen in a relationship and some of the sources. And both of us have worked with couples throughout our time helping people.
Yeah, so Doug wanted to, I saw him when he was testifying in court and doing psych evaluations and seeing what the truth is, that he really had a passion to help these couples sort through this and relate in a more conscious way to each other. Now, they weren't at the point of being willing to do that. So Doug has had a therapy practice for
25 years.
Yeah, 25 years. And I've been working with clients around the world for 6 years, and specifically for the last couple years in the core emotional healing process with clients. And I work with people who are typically struggling in relationships, and they have other symptoms, but another main symptom is either attracting the same type of relationship that's not good for them, or being in a relationship where they're not getting their needs met, they're giving up their needs for the other person, they're fighting, they're wanting to leave their marriage. So I work a lot with relationships, and I was working just mostly with women in their relationships, and recently I started referring their partners who were willing to look at their stuff, because as one person does this work and looks at what's causing it and what patterns they're repeating from childhood, the other person, it's needed for the other person to do that work as well.
Yeah, so. and the goal of the work, as the title indicates, is for both partners to get their core and deepest needs really met from one another. And we'll be talking a little bit about that. We're about to. And what happened for both of us, she's done a lot of really powerful experiential work. I was trained in experiential therapy and had a lot of body work and different kinds of therapy as well. Really years of individual and other therapies. And of course, both of us have been in relationships before this and had, we'll just say, various experiences in those relationships. I was married for about 15 years before this and had other shorter relationships. And what happened for us when we met each other, without getting, we felt very strongly drawn to each other, and that was really important because we had no idea what we were about to go through. And we spent, after we had known each other for about 4 months and we were already living together, we started getting into these really painful and difficult conflicts. Just triggering each other, and it was like once or twice a week, and it was just so painful. And in most relationships that I've been in, it would have been like kind of like a deal breaker to be in this level of intensity and pain that we were, I was almost just said that we were causing each other, but that's not it at all. What we came to realize is we were really in our own pain, and that the relationship was the catalyst source of evocation. Mm-hmm. So, I was just in a men's group that I run on Facebook, and we were talking, one thing that came up is you can be a monk and be alone and kind of be cool, like everything's fine.
That's what I was going to share. So you were in a marriage and you were in back-to-back relationships, that all had their own dynamic. And I was in really unhealthy relationships throughout my 20s until I was 30. And then I decided I can't be in a relationship until I do my own healing work and I have a better relationship with myself. So I was single for 7 years. And I felt really good being single.
It's a breeze. It's not so,
So
but,
right. So
you're alone. The problem is you're alone.
Yeah. So I thought I had really healed my past, and all the healing work that I did, and I did heal a lot. And then when we got into this relationship that provided this container and the safety, I'm gonna have to get
I could talk
charger.
For a minute.
Yeah. Then I was like, wow, I have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, and that, fortunately, because of our histories, and you want to
I'll
get
get
your charger?
The charger in our room. The portable
wherever it
one.
is.
Want to know how else to charge this?
Yeah, go ahead and get it. It's in the.
Sorry, guys.
It's in the nightstand.
We didn't plan out the battery situation. Okay.
So, as we said, part of what was occurring in these painful interactions was, and that held us together was, some awareness that there was something really important happening, and that we, it was our love, frankly, and as well as the realization that even while we were going through it, that it was our own stuff, that Elicia wasn't fully the one, at that point, I even knew she wasn't fully the one to blame, even though in the moment there were times when I felt like she was doing something to me, and we're going to talk more about that. So there were times, and we did this as well, that when we got into a pattern that we felt stuck in, or that we didn't feel like we could handle it, we would get help. And there was, we got help from probably 3, 4, 5 different people. One woman that stands out that helped us with imago work was Julie Zipper. And she does some great, very straightforward work that just helped us kind of see how some of the things that were going on, really the imago is from the past and an internal thing. And that's a key feature of the work that we do as well. And we're going to give you more examples. We're going to hang our dirty laundry out, at least a couple of pieces, so you can hear more in detail of what we went through and how we handled it. So in sum, for that
Did you
part,
share how hard it is to see it? Is that why you brought up
No,
Julie? Or
no, I
so
didn't.
even though, like, I had already done a lot of my past healing myself through many different means and therapists and modalities and coursework for 10 years. I had a lot of awareness and tools, and I do this work for clients as well. Doug obviously had been doing therapy in his own therapy for 35 years. And so we're skilled and trained in triggers and processing emotions, and we got to points that we just couldn't, we were at an impasse and we couldn't do it ourselves and we couldn't see it. And that's actually one question that came in, and that's when, I mean, even if you're skilled at this and trained in this, your stuff gets too much in the way for you to actually see what's going on, and hear the other person and be there for the other person if you're in your own pain. So that's why it's important to get help to move through it and to see what's going on for both people.
So to begin to just introduce what we're going to share with you and inform you with, I went online and looked for emotional needs of children, and this is one of the things that came up, and these are things that every child needs and wants, and few of us have lived in ideal homes, and even the best parents sometimes miss. And there's an idea in psychology about being a good enough parent. That's all kind of what really matters is what you're carrying with you now, what you missed, what you didn't get, what has happened in your previous relationship. So here's 10 needs, and these aren't the only needs. This is just one way to group them. Can you see that?
There you go.
There you go. So a child needs to feel accepted and forgiven, of course, and what I really like about the forgiven piece is if a child's left unforgiven, then they're probably going to be carrying shame and guilt, and shame's a big one. This is one example from my life that was really important. Of course, a child needs to be cared about, and if they don't feel important, they're going to have low self-value. They need to feel free and that they can make their own decisions and feel some sense of efficacy in the world. And this leads to the second one. They have to feel some sense of control. And when they don't, a parent has to help them get in control. And so that's something the parents provide. They also, of course, need to feel loved and safe. And safe includes emotionally safe and in other ways. Supported, that what's important to them is important to their parents, and that they are encouraged, trusted and believed in, that they are held, that they have a kind of moral compass, and that they are okay doing things on their own and supported in that. They need to feel understood, that they're being seen. And this is a really important one in terms of intimacy overall.
Being heard.
Including being heard. And that they feel valued, important, and special. It's really easy to relate to these as a person. Now, what you could each consider is maybe ways that these are points of trigger for you in your relationships. Other times you don't feel free. Other times you don't feel that you have control or that someone's controlling you. You can get both flip sides of this. Other times when you don't feel accepted or forgiven, or maybe you're given too much leeway and you actually want someone. And then, consider back to your childhood and how these things might have been played out by your parents. I think Alicia's going to post these,
Yeah. Where's your phone?
except my phone disappeared. Here it is. One more shot here.
We've created a PowerPoint on Facebook Live.
Can you believe that? A PowerPoint on Facebook Live. This could be
Was it even possible?
the first time ever, and you're here to witness it. But it's probably not the first time ever.
I'm sure there's much more professional Facebook Live videos.
And we're obviously just killing a second here while we get this up.
Oh, look, it's on there, but I'm going to post it as well.
Okay, where can they find that?
They're watching it. It's going to be in the right now.
Oh,
so as you're watching
it's in the comments
it's going to
feed,
pop up.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the comments feed where you found this. Okay, so moving on.
That's a great list.
I love it.
I love it. But it's interesting because some people think they're caring about the person, but there's so many ways that people don't feel cared for.
Right.
And there's so many ways that people think they're caring about the person. Like, for instance, like if you're upset and a child is upset and the mother says, "Oh, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay." Mm-hmm. The mother is probably, maybe thinking she's caring for the kid so he's not upset.
Yeah.
Instead of caring about why he's upset.
And it's as though the mom's more concerned
about
that she knows the kid's okay and she needs to be comforted.
Exactly.
And all of our parents have carried their wounds, and that's a whole nother story. Anything more you want to say about it?
Well, I wanted to give that example of why this is so tricky. It is so tricky to try to understand what you're reacting to and why that other person is reacting or not able to be there for you and where all this stuff comes from. So.
Yeah, and we're going to keep touching on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a couple of ideas just we want to introduce is what is emotional intimacy, and just a broad, we're each going to say something, but a broad definition of that is you presenting everything that you are to the person, including your fears, hopes, desires, dreams, vulnerabilities, and being met, and feeling some satisfaction in the way that you've been met. That's how I would define healthy intimacy in 27 words or less. And I know you wanted to say more.
Well, as you were saying that, I was like, wow. That's like most people.
Yeah, because that's what I expect from you all the time, perfectly.
I mean, we both were unique in the way that we both had that need coming into this relationship. So one of our needs that we had on our list was for someone to be able to handle our emotions. So that's why our relationship, I think, helped us heal so quickly, is because both of us created a safe space for each other because we could handle emotions. At times not, but...
No, what I'm laughing about, let me interrupt, is when we both had a high tolerance for deviance. It actually helped, I think. So.
Anyway, so we craved emotional connection.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to know how the other person felt, and we wanted to share how we felt. So that was one of our needs coming in, and that's why it was so transformative for us on an emotional level. Mm-hmm. So emotional intimacy can happen when there is a safe space. So when there isn't, if someone is not comfortable with any emotion, then it's not a safe space. Then it's going to block emotional intimacy or someone being comfortable sharing what you just said, like being seen and heard and expressing fears and desires.
And so, and just jumping ahead, that speaks to the trust in the relationship and the amount of safety. But if you already have trust issues, you could actually be in a safe space, but you may not experience it that way because you're in Alicia's model is your inner child and your history was not a safe history, and then you're bringing that in, and we're about to talk more.
So emotional intimacy, what you described is that, and it's rare that people are able to go there with the other
all the way,
fully,
and that's what we'd like to teach everyone.
And so emotional intimacy for me is just basically caring about how the other person feels, beyond being right or how you feel, but like how do you feel? How did that feel? I mean, and that's growth, like to get to that place where all that matters is you caring how that other person feels. So
you said it in 4 words, and it took me about 200, but that's great. So what's the issue then? What happened? And in our work, we become aware of the importance of emotional abandonment as a general idea. And when I say general, it's because of this. First, let me define it a little bit. Just emotional abandonment is when those things don't happen, when intimacy doesn't occur, when you aren't met, when your feelings aren't taken care of. Now, as I said earlier, that I realized it wasn't that I wasn't getting from Elicia everything I wanted, but I realized I was cutting myself off from it. So what happens is, because of our history, our family experiences, our hurts, the ways that our caregivers missed on those 10 items, and there's plenty more, then we already feel abandoned. So what we do is we put up defense mechanisms to protect ourselves. We don't want to be hurt again. And there are many, many tricky ways that we take care of ourselves in that way and defend against. But the problem is, the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater, because though you may be protecting yourself, you're also creating a block in terms of opening to getting the very thing you wanted that you were hurt from in the past. So then you create the same situation. So you create your own emotional abandonment. And that's the key point, is that the triggers and the high intensity stuff that goes down in our relationships and emerges from the way that we're abandoning ourselves. Then we experience something like it from our partner, and then we can focus all on them, and that keeps us out of our pain, out of our vulnerability, and it sure as heck interrupts intimacy. So I think I just covered triggers. And you want to say more? I didn't. I thought I skimmed over it. So you covered emotional abandonment. Yeah, with and oneself. I mentioned. Go ahead and. So let's go into an example, like in our relationship. Okay, but there's 3 lines before. Okay. Do you want to do this one? We talked about that. Yeah. So yeah, I did. Yeah. Okay, but you want to talk about how? Yeah. 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 Okay. So, as some of you may know, I do men's work, and looking forward to launching some men's intensives in the near future. Real excited about that. And shame is a big thing for men, because we get so many messages about what it means to be a man, and if we don't live up to it, then we're less than a man, and all kinds of things. Shame's a huge issue for women too. We're kind of all the same underneath, but the way we get conditioned by society creates different types of defenses and different kinds of things that create shame in us. There are a few ways that people respond to shame and to triggers in general, and these are from Robert Augustus Masters, who's written in the men's area and others. He's a therapist. There's withdrawal, which you just kind of check out. There's isolation, and there's anger.
And then,
well, dissociation, withdrawal, dissociation, and anger. So,
and then in my model, I add on to that. Well, you're talking about withdrawal, anger, and then numbing.
well, numbing would
is a
be
form of
dissociation,
Okay, dissociation.
and
Yeah.
withdrawal.
Yeah.
They're all, in any case, what they all do, anger pushes you away. What they all do is they interrupt the relationship. If you're angry, you're interrupting intimacy and the relationship. If you're dissociated, you just checked out. And an extreme form of that could be drug and alcohol use.
Porn.
Porn.
Extreme would be cheating
And that's actually
Yeah.
withdrawal. That's
Yeah.
actually like, I'm just withdrawing, and I'm going to do this, and
Yeah.
then you have a whole mess there. In any case, so this was supposed to be about us, and so one of the things that would cause shame in me as a man, and I kind of digressed and went into that whole bit, but that was important information too, is Elicia would sometimes offer me help or a suggestion, and I would be like, I got this. Don't tell me what to do. I know how to do it. And like I would be snarky, would be like maybe a little low level thing, or sometimes I would get angry and kind of like come at her, not like physically threatening, but just like the anger was so disproportionate to, she was just trying to help. And so that's one of the clues of what a trigger is. Now, what would happen to you when I would get angry?
Well, do you want to say what got triggered in you?
Oh yeah, this is just a history of being shamed, even in ways that I didn't know until really quite recently, that from people in my childhood that had shamed me and made me feel that I wasn't doing things right, that I was stupid. Now, both of us are also younger children, so that's a factor in it, where we were not as smart as everyone else in the house. We didn't know things, but there were other very specific things that have happened in my life and patterns that were quite subtle that I didn't know about. So I had worked on some of this stuff, but there was more left. So then I would get angry, and I'll let you...
So when I was coming from a place of just wanting to help. So I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this. We're typically always wanting to help and make sure that I always wanted to make sure his needs were met and he was okay. So I was coming from that place, and so I would offer, something or remind him about something, and then if he heard it as you don't know what you're doing.
Good, I already,
yeah.
So
I know.
Would you respond
well,
to my
I just
anger?
wanted to say, so.
Okay.
Yeah. You would hear, even though you shared how you got shamed as a child, you would hear that you were stupid or and
the thing for men is we want to feel competent. We want to be the guy like in control of at least ourselves, or the guy that knows the stuff, and that can be an important part of male identity.
Yeah. So I'm offering help, and then he would reject me. He would reject my offer. He would reject my love. And then if it did escalate, or if his reaction was in anger, I'm very sensitive to anger because of my childhood. And so that would trigger my fear. And so I would leave to protect myself because I didn't feel safe. And so me leaving the situation, I would want to go into another room, and at times would want to leave the house. And then that would trigger
my abandonment issues. And I would just go into misery, or sometimes more anger, or just like really feeling alone, really feeling empty. And now what I want to do is kind of replay that sequence. So we got, one of the things that I really want in my life is someone that helps me and takes care of me. And back then I wanted that too. Back then, it was a couple of years ago. So in that sense, it was me abandoning myself, and the shame I was feeling around that caused that abandonment of myself. I wasn't accepting that I was actually okay, but I was living in the feeling that I wasn't okay. And so there was no one could do anything about that except me. I had to go back and figure out the source and check in with myself as a child and give myself the self-esteem, the confidence, and there was a safety element in that too, that I could trust that someone is going to give me what I want, so I could open to the offering that was being made. And that's an important thing, is we're going to talk about that again later. So what I was doing, I was emotionally abandoning myself. Here's a person offering this to me, but I was already emotionally abandoning myself. So then I created my own emotional abandonment. Then, and I'll let you, go on to the fear, what was happening inside of Elicia. She already touched on it a bit with anger in your household.
Yeah. So I was afraid and scared, and no matter what I said, he was in his trigger, and I was sharing that I'm scared, I don't feel, I would share how I was feeling, and it was falling on deaf ears. And I was like, I just want you to care about how I feel. That's all. I want you to care that I don't feel safe right now. And so I was emotionally abandoned as well.
And think about how a clinical psychologist feels when their spouse tells them they don't understand how they feel. So that was really shameful for me, for good reason.
Naomi just left a comment of like, I'll be back can feel better when leaving. And we were going to address that of what to do when you're triggered so the person doesn't feel abandoned. So thanks, Naomi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think
another example. So that was one example of Doug's trigger that then...
triggered her stuff. And anyway.
Yeah. So look, we have worked through all that, and that was a couple years ago, and we don't, so now, when I offer support, or if anything like that happens, or even if there is a feeling of, maybe you don't know I'm trying to help you with something that you don't know, don't you pause sometimes still? And
yeah. There's like this residue that's still there sometimes, or a habit of interacting, but I'm not triggered. Like it's like a little moment of like, and I catch it, and this is what I could see it like a process of like, before, when we were in the midst of it, it would take me sometimes 24 hours before I could say, oh, I did this. Then it turned to 10 hours, then it turned to 4 hours, and then 5 minutes, and then so now sometimes it's still a few seconds, and I'm like, but the feeling's much reduced because I've done some of the inner child work and gone back and healed the events and the feelings that were fueling that to begin with.
And I've created a safe space for us to heal this pattern, and so have you. Now I see with other couples, if there's a lot of threatening of leaving, like if I said, if you get angry again, I'm leaving you, that's a threat of abandonment, which then, wouldn't create a safe space for this to be healed. So, I suggest both of you have compassion for each other as you work through this old stuff that isn't really about the other person, and to care about what is being triggered. So
and I had to kind of own it and say, and come to her and say, when that happens, I feel really abandoned. And that's this kind of extra step of courage of like, I'm already hurt, I know I've done something wrong, and yet I still have to put this out there so that she knows. And likewise, she had to let me know about how, when I got angry, how that felt to her, and asked me not to do that. And then you're already engaged. Then you're in the moment. Then you actually have like the first kind of example of like, hey, it's okay to come to you with my abandonment. It's okay to be in this relationship when I feel that way, and you're not going to go anywhere. Maybe at that point it was like, you're not going to go anywhere, maybe. and vice versa, that it's okay for her to let me know that the anger scared her, and
I'm not going to leave,
and that she's not going to leave, and so it goes back and forth, and that's part of the process. There's more, and you want to give the other example of?
Yeah, I just wanted to share, though, it does take both people being willing. So we were able to work this out because we're both willing, and our love is so strong in our commitment to each other. So I see when one person's not willing to do this work, it can be very difficult. So I just wanted to say that. An example of one of my triggers that wasn't as deep, because I've already healed the past, and I'm already feeling it in the present, but something residual was a good word. Like, there's still residual from the past that can present itself. So I see a situation from my past and it's actually not true. So an example of that, and I see this often in clients I work with, women I work with, Doug will be on his computer or his phone, and I have something to share, and I just start talking to him, and he's not listening, he's not turning around, he's not stopping what he's doing, and I feel ignored. I don't feel heard. I don't feel important, and going down to that, I don't feel loved, and it wasn't a strong trigger. It didn't result in me getting angry or anything like that, but I would just say, like, hear me, listen to me. Hello, why aren't you listening to me? Why aren't you listening to me? And this would happen a lot until finally, it took both of us to talk about this pattern that kept happening. He said, I do listen to you. And then I said, yeah, you do. You listen to me all the time. No one's ever listened to me. No one's ever been able to talk the way we talk, and that's what I've always wanted, and I actually was getting what I need. I wasn't acknowledging his needs and where he was, so I was kind of projecting, you're not being there for me, when actually I was not considering where he was. And so now, I can say, and now I don't take it personal. Like, if I'm talking and he's not looking up or not going to stop what he's doing, I'm like, oh, he's busy. Okay. So then that's considering his needs.
Yeah, and that goes back to childhood being listened to. And of course, there were times when I'm like, I wasn't like angry, I was irritated, I would say, and I would be like, God, I'm just on the computer. Can you give me 5 minutes? And so, and that's, if you have enough of those in a relationship, it kind of eats away and eats away and eats away. So even though this wasn't like a big trigger blowout thing, it was still something that needed to be addressed to. And she, in a sense, was setting up her own emotional abandonment, because, like, I'm in the middle of something and really focused, and she's going blah 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 and expecting me to listen, and then she feels abandoned, and then I'm the one emotionally abandoning her. But again, as we said earlier, the point is that she already had felt emotionally abandoned and was just creating the situation where it was replaying and had unrealistic expectations, which is another sign of a trigger, if you have unrealistic expectations.
That's what I was going to say. Another thing that happens in relationships is that one person expects the other person to be like them. So I wanted him to just calmly say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy right now. I'll talk to you in like 5 minutes. So I was expecting him to respond in that nice, calm, kind way. And
I'm from Boston, so there are cultural factors as well. In any case, so there were there's so much that happens with any individual client that it's impossible to capture what we do in this kind of format, and we want to keep this reasonably brief at this
point. If you have any questions, we are going to be answering questions. So if anyone who's listening live has any relationship questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. I'll be looking out for them. That's a nice part about having two people on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
We can manage the questions.
We can plug in our phone while the other one's distracting you. In any case,
Another benefit of being in relationship.
Right.
Supporting each other.
Yeah.
On Facebook Live.
So the sort of two things that helped us heal and that we teach in our private couple sessions and in our workshop, and again, we could just kind of summarize these as sort of techniques and as things to look out for. Basically, you want to look for the triggers of anger, withdrawal, and dissociation. If you have those in your relationship, and particularly it feels familiar, you've been there before, the same kind of situations going up. If you're not dealing with a trigger, I'll be very surprised. So try to surprise me with one that isn't anyway, if you feel inclined. But so anger can also be, passive aggression, or, anger can be, full-on domestic violence. Now, withdrawal can be just kind of checking out. It could be being on your phone, and man, we all struggle with this. I don't know anyone who doesn't sometimes do this too much. And that could be a way to withdraw. It could be just leaving the house, leaving the situation, not engaging in a conversation that brings closure to the event. It could be a doorbell ringing, could take you away from things. And then dissociation.
Or shaming someone for having their phone on.
And I am not shamed.
Right.
Or dissociation, which can be just kind of like going off in dreamland when there's like emotions present. And, I did mention, severe dissociation could be substance abuse, the kind of a real chemical numbing. Or, porn can be dissociative and withdrawing. So one of the things we try to teach is staying present in the relationship, staying present, not getting angry, not withdrawing, and not dissociating. And if things start getting, you kind of have to monitor each of those, and if they get above like a 3 or 4, it may be time that you have an agreement, especially with anger.
Yeah, so it's hard when you are bringing up some really painful...
You're dealing with your triggers that go all the way back to your childhood,
right.
And your relationships.
Painful events in the past are getting triggered, and so anger is a natural response of protecting, of responding from that pain. So it's not so much at first not getting angry. What's more reasonable is to say, when you get angry, recognize that you're triggered, and then take a break.
Mm-hmm. And for people, and there's usually one in every relationship or both, where abandonment happens and that becomes a trigger during these incidents, your emotions are already peaked, and then someone goes away. Have an agreement ahead of time that this is what we're going to do. I still love you when that's happening. I'm doing this for us. We're doing this for us. And we are going to come back together and resolve this. You don't just take off to, the Bahamas all of a sudden.
So going back to emotional intimacy is caring about how the other person feels. So even though it doesn't feel good to you, caring that that's what they need until this is resolved.
Yeah, and again, those agreements ahead of time, being calm, trying to be calm and expressing your innermost needs without withdrawing, without dissociating, without anger. Those are all defenses. And there's other ones as well. But being calm and expressing your vulnerability, what you want, what you need in that moment, and is what we teach in the workshop. And it may sound like a lot, but once you have an experience of actually doing it, and it's like, in essence, it's sort of like, instead of turning to the outside and feeling the hurt, it's like you turn to the inside and you take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Then you can bring that solidity and say, this is what I want. That's a real summary, but that's kind of the core of the experience. And we have a question that actually fits right in here nicely. from Nicole, who we actually got permission to talk about this.
Yeah, so Nicole's question is, her and her husband, we've worked together. We've had a couple session, and we've worked with Nicole during a workshop recently.
And I worked with her husband, who
Yeah.
shall for now remain nameless.
And I've worked with Nicole privately as well. So this is an example of a couple who's already in process with recognizing when they're triggered. They've already started working on their own, healing their own past emotional traumas, and sorting through it all. And they're both willing to do this work, which is beautiful. So Nicole asked that they realized yesterday when they get upset with one another, they're both saying how they feel, but both selfishly not hearing or being able to empathize with the other. So is this just a place for pausing? And what if we pause and keep ending up in the same place?
And there were times when we were there.
Oh, yeah.
There were times, in the midst of that shaming, anger, withdrawal thing, I didn't care what you said. I mean, I was in such a primitive, like a child, and hurt. It was just me, and,
And that's why it's important for each person to be committed to doing their own work, because if he doesn't give himself what he needs, he's not going to be able to be there for mine.
And I'm not going to be able to get it.
And not going to receive it from me.
The pain
right.
situation over and over again.
Right.
So I know you had some.
So it's
for
that
Nicole's question.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's not an easy answer. There's not one answer to that, because one suggestion that we've done in the past after we've gotten to a place of being able to do this was one person can share at a time until they feel heard and it feels resolved in terms of understanding how the other person felt.
So as it happens, and you both have just that, like you both have a moment of kind of coherence, and even in your mind, if not your heart, you could say, one of us has to deal with at a time. Who's it going to be? Okay, me. Okay. And you can make an agreement. You say, we're going to talk about what's going on with me, and then we're definitely going to talk about what's happening with you. Mm-hmm. But right now, I just need to be heard, and then the other person has to agree. I mean, that's the give and take, obviously, in adult relationships. And then you just focus. You may be having all kinds of triggers and reactions, but you can hold that, knowing that you're going to have your chance later on. And this is actually the beginning of building blocks of a greater flow of conflict resolution, where you can have a more give and take dialogue while you're holding your own feelings in a contained and safe place. So it starts sort of very simply with like, my turn, then your turn. And you each learn to hold your reactions and your feelings. And then there may be another turn that's needed, another. But you can only do so much of this work and really integrate it at a time. So not everything might get resolved, but there's certainly enough time and energy, usually, unless it's like 2 a.m. And we recommend not getting in fights after 10 a.m.
10 p.m.
10 p.m. or 10 a.m.
Whatever time works for you. But
so, yeah, when you're exhausted and your resources
the same
are low.
rule is like,
because this takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot to hold your feelings, and it takes a lot to hold your partner.
Yeah, so definitely do it when you're in a good space.
And you can even say, "Oh, I'm feeling triggered. It's 10:30. Can we talk about?" And and you begin to learn to hold these things, and then you do the back and forth till you really feel like you've been heard, you've been met. The intimacy, this actually creates wonderful intimacy, and it's like for the first time wow, I got through this. Wow, I got heard. Wow, I got held. Wow.
So that's only if.
So that's an ideal scenario.
That's only if, and we've experienced that after we've already taken care of our emotional needs. So so you're not coming from already
Ourselves.
Yeah,
That there's been some healing, but
because
after it didn't go so well.
Without that, it's like you're in deficit. So there's no way you can you're like, I need it. You know, a question came in. Agreements can be difficult at times. What if just one always gives? Agreements can be difficult at times. What if one always gives?
If one always gives, then there's two things going on there. One is the person who seems to be. It can be lots of things going on, but the one who's always giving probably needs to have some boundaries and take care of themselves and turn that giving inside and start taking care of themselves. And that may actually potentially, in an ideal situation, create a pull that might at least create the space for the other person to start giving. So this is kind of a classic codependent kind of question.
That's why agreements can be difficult, which is true. Because if
that's the name of the book, right? Is it a book or?
Oh, I don't, no, that's what she said.
Okay. You should write a book.
Yeah, that should be a book. We agree that agreements can be difficult because we're dealing that with clients all the time. So especially with my work with women, I deal with mostly codependent women who are giving up their needs. And so once they do the inner child work and they start to take care of their own needs and they're feeling how it feels now to not get their needs met, and they start to ask for the other person to be there and to listen or to help, but that agreement was already set up where that wasn't a part of it, and they don't need to do that, and then that creates a defensive reaction of you're asking too much of me, or they don't know how to deal with someone's feelings. They never did, and you can talk to that about men reacting from that place, like when I would ask you, just care about how I'm feeling, you would still be feeling like you did something wrong.
Yeah, because I'm a psychologist. but the bigger issue here, and I don't want to get too far into this, but men, we're not taught to do that. And we are taught to be in a privileged role and to be taken care of, a lot of us, by women. And so sometimes there's new skill sets that need to be learned, and the man has to be willing. Once you can develop good boundaries and you're not going to sacrifice too much, it is possible to help your partner through some of this if you're so inclined. And it's not. You may get to a point where you realize it's not up to you and that this relationship it won't fulfill you ultimately. But many men, and there's many opportunities and supports for men now to start doing this kind of work. So that's kind of a real skinny on some of the things that go on. It's kind of a skills deficit, and then it's also a learning and a compassion. And men, as I said, have all kinds of barriers against the messages we get about what it means to be a man, and sometimes giving vulnerably and emotionally is not one of the skill sets that we learn.
Yeah, especially if they're not comfortable with their own emotions. You're unique in that, but a lot of men. Well, you were
okay.
Very emotionally competent.
I know I was. I really was. So, Nicole, did you want to say more about Nicole?
That question, it was in the ideal world after you've taken care of your own emotional needs, then you can best hear the other person and how they feel, and you can be there for them. So if you're not taking care of your emotional needs, or you don't know what that means, or you don't know how to do it, how that can look is you'll need help. Basically, because
Yeah.
the other, it just you get to an impasse where someone's saying, you're not hearing me, you don't understand this, and you're not hearing me, you don't understand this, and when you get to that place and you can't understand or empathize with the person, then you'll need help from someone like us, or going another professional of hearing it. You'll be able to hear it in a different way when it's presented from a professional.
Yeah, that often makes all the difference. Just getting a third party in who can just re-express things and help you hear one another can be really powerful, and put you in a place of greater compassion. So we just kind of
do you want to answer those?
Yeah, we kind of just went quickly over the staying present, how important that can be. And when you're not present, if you're pissed, withdrawn, or dissociated, it's probably better to consciously check out than to stay in that place with your partner, because then there's just this wounding going on back and forth. And it's like, I've described it as like two minefields walking over each other. And so those timeouts can be really important till you can get back and maintain some presence for the process. Then the second way that we talked about we heal this kind of work is through inner child work. And that's more of like a long-term, that's really that's the core emotional work underneath the triggers and the relationship problems. And Elicia is quite a master with that stuff.
Yeah, and thank you. So I'm getting the support that I need. Yeah, in my experience with clients, there's some clients that have a really loving and supportive partner, and they are still operating from not feeling loved or loved enough. They don't feel like they're getting the love. Not this. Okay.
No, put it back a little.
Okay.
There you go.
We're adjusting.
Getting a little more light.
The lights changed since we started. So yeah, so that's why it's important to do the inner child work, is when no matter what's actually happening or how supportive someone is or how loved, how they're loving you, if you didn't get the love that you needed, you may still be operating from not getting enough and being jealous if the other person goes out with someone, because it means they don't love you, and there's all these projections going on. So that's why the inner child work lays the foundation for you to take care of your own, learn how to take care of your own emotional needs and give yourself what you needed or what you didn't get as a child. So then you can more easily process triggers in a relationship and be there for someone else, and not blame them for your childhood neglect and abuse.
Wow, that was efficient. We got another question.
So Adam had a few questions. So how do you learn to trust a partner after having been repeatedly betrayed by previous partners?
So thanks, Adam, for the question. And, the first place both of us went were, what were the childhood maybe betrayals or lack of trust that may have occurred for you in your life that you then, consistent with it, what we've said, brought into your relationships and maybe recreated perhaps from your own, like two things, like kind of creating a dynamic in your relationship that might have, maybe you were abandoning yourself and maybe abandoning your partner, maybe causing them to look elsewhere, not causing, but contributing. And, I want to be really careful about not saying this was your fault, and this is just a pattwn.
It's an unconscious manifestation.
There's a defense mechanism Adams knows a lot about, called projective identification, which can play a role here, where you're putting something on the other person and kind of help them act that way. But also, there may be choosing people who kind of from the upfront have this proclivity. And there's an old, going back to like the beginning of the codependence movement and alcoholics, there was this basic kind of story that an alcoholic could walk into a room and there could be 300 people there, and he's going to find the one codependent and go right toward her. And this is like karmic stuff, or it's just intuitive, unconscious stuff that comes up. And so both these things may occur. Now, this has been, the thing is what to do about it.
Well, like the codependent is operating still from, I am invalidated and feel loved if I'm helping someone, if I'm fixing someone, if my attention's outside of myself, then I don't need to look at myself. And the alcoholic
or narcissist
needs, we're not saying alcoholics are narcissists, by the way.
Some are.
Yeah.
Some aren't.
Okay. I know plenty of narcissists who don't even drink. So, okay. So, they're both operating from a wounded child and very low self-esteem, but they're feeding their need or trying to fill it through the other person, either fixing it or needing them to always be there for them.
So there could be a similar dynamic with the trust. So as I was saying, like the thing to look at now, just from asking that question, almost irregardless of where it came from, you're feeling mistrusting, and this again, some turning inside and going back to your childhood and seeing times when you may have had good reason not to trust, or had some other experience that
betrayed.
You interpreted as betrayal and
so
mistrust.
This is
and then,
feeling betrayed.
Yes, and healing that, or maybe you just had a bad run of untrustful women, and have to heal that so that you can open up at an appropriate pace in a new relationship and have the opportunity to trust, so that you can not be emotionally abandoning yourself from the get-go, and have the connection and get what you want. I mean, from your developmental side, I mean, trust is a very core kind of issue, and this stuff could go back, to the first year and two of life, and anything beyond that. Trust is very important, and it is healable. Trust can be learned, and trust can be self-healed, more importantly, in our model here.
Yeah, going back to emotional abandonment.
Yes.
And
don't abandon yourself by saying the world isn't trustworthy. And no, I can't trust any women. Women are all X, Y's, and Z's, and can't be trusted. And they want your money, or they just want to use you, or they're unloyal. And getting rid of not so much even just the cognitive beliefs, the thoughts like that, but the feeling, the emotional, and the expectation, and the reason I'm starting to get a little vague here is it is the kind of inner child work and the other type of work that a little more that we can cover right here in this presentation. So, are there any other questions? Is that it takes practice. It's a skill. Thank you, Pat. It's also about how one attracts the same type of people.
So
exactly.
Yeah, talking about, instead of answering Adam's question on a surface level in terms of just stay open and ask yourself, is this person doing anything, or is this, am I creating these thoughts? That would be the kind of on a surface level. And Doug just shared, well, where is it really coming from? Like, why are you attracting partners that betray you? How did you feel betrayed as a child? And then what does your child self need? He needs you to feel safe, that you're not going to leave him, you're not going to betray him, and you're going to choose more carefully maybe, and really listen to yourself with who you're with, and if there's any signs of warning signs before you get together. So, yeah, I hope that answers that question. He had a couple more questions. Men often feel that when they're vulnerable with their partners interpret them as being needy. This is a good question. And weak as men. In many cases, this leads their partners to lose sexual attraction for them. Maybe that's why they treat. I don't know if that goes with the first question. Okay. At what point?
It's similar.
Yeah. In a relationship, can men begin to be vulnerable with their partners? How do they know when it is safe to do so? How do they know when it's not?
Well, you may have heard in my previous response that, pacing your vulnerability is important in all relationships. So, you have this kind of example, like on a first date, if you reveal everything, this, that, blah, 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 you're probably not going to get a call back, So I'm just kind of doing an exaggerated pacing, how you open up. You have to feel safe to do this. I think there's ways that after 2.5 years, I've still been opening up to Elicia. That's like those real deep, scared, is this okay places. And it's a wonderful process, and it's about being in a relationship, and there's no... So pacing's important, and going at a pace that you're comfortable with. Now, if a woman, doesn't see your
Turned
sensitivity
by that,
and vulnerability as a positive thing, then there may be conditioning that she's experienced about what a man is and how to relate to men herself. And I think it's more complicated than that. But the stereotypes that men experience and what, that image, the overly macho traditional image of what a man is. And it doesn't include a lot of emotion and vulnerability. But the issue is, that a woman and a man is not going to experience intimacy and feeling connected and fulfilled in a relationship without those things. Maybe the women need to be educated in ways, and there are women that just want real macho guys, and there's women that want men that are more on the feminine side and not assertive and not classically masculine, and then there's women that want it all, and there's
Me.
So I think there's a lot involved in that, and I don't feel like I've really addressed it all. But I think I know you are in the men's group, and we could maybe bring this up there, and I'm sure we'll.
I wonder if it's the woman. It is about the conditioning of what a man is, and I wonder if it goes back, or if she feels like he won't be strong enough to be able to take care of her needs. Mm-hmm. Like maybe she feels like if you're losing it, then who's going to be there for me? You know?
Yeah, and that's interesting because I did focus on maybe the woman's conditioning, but there may be a way that to explore, as opposed to being like a traditional man, to find a kind of deeper kind of belly type of power that can help, that comes through clarity of knowing self and bringing it out and bringing that forward, and just some things like that. Now I don't have any reason to believe that applies,
and maybe if a woman is not taking care of her emotional needs, if she's fragile and she may not have the capacity to hold space for another until
feelings,
until she gets comfortable with her own feelings. And that's the same with men, being able to hold space and be there and care about a woman's feelings is if they're in touch with their own, because if they're not, then it's going to be uncomfortable. And then that's typically what causes the reaction or defense of you're crazy, or there's something wrong with you, for feeling this way.
Yeah, and there are things around trust here too, and that have already been brought up?
So I think, to answer your question, Adam, it would be nice to find someone who's like yourself, who is doing inner work on themselves, who is already in process.
An awake woman.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, I guess, my advice. So the next one is, what's the best way to handle relationship vulnerabilities around cell phone use and social media, which we touched on earlier in my trigger. This one, for example, messaging privacy and relationship status anxieties, since this is often a cause of contention in relationships.
Do you know? Can you summarize that?
I think what he's asking, all right, so there's vulnerabilities around cell phone use and social media, messaging privacy. So maybe not, this goes back maybe to the trust thing of not trusting or feeling vulnerable if they're texting or messaging or sexting someone on Facebook, or flirting or something like that. So I think we addressed the trust issues.
And I'm kind of getting like a little intuitive hit around, there's something here about abandonment and loss that's related to this trust. And, there's a lot of work you can do around those experiences in your life to heal that and to step into a place where you're not anticipating that, and where you can relax and feel safe with a person who deserves for you to feel safe with them. And that again, that goes back to other kinds of work that we do. Are there any other questions? Or
I think that was all for the questions that were submitted, but we're always happy to answer. If you're not joining us live and you hear this, feel free to ask questions on this video in the comments. Send them to us in a private message if it's too vulnerable or sensitive. So we're having a workshop, couples conscious relating couples workshop next weekend here in Atlanta, right before Valentine's Day, February 12th. So we have, if you're interested in joining us, we have a early bird special, so check it out online.
We think that we're going to do our best to have each couple do some work and get the tools they need to get through or establish a basis for moving through specific issues. And then, because each couple's learning from the other couples, I think it's going to be a powerful workshop. And there'll be some educational stuff as well to kind of get you on the page and into your hearts, and also into some of the fears and some of the challenges that are standing in the way, the triggers and distance that are interfering with the love and intimacy. So.
It's hard to see it when you're in it. So Doug and I had an experience last weekend in my trigger workshop with someone who couldn't see things clearly because she was in her trigger for the past 3 years in the relationship, and protecting herself, and that was a block to intimacy. It was a block for healing her own stuff, and it was a block to open the space for her partner to look at his stuff as well. So much goodness comes from triggers and in relationship.
It's really a way in to your what you really want. I mean, that's the kind of ironic, weird thing about it, that these very painful spots are really the things that can open up your heart, your relationship, your connection.
What triggers jealousy or possessiveness? I think we kind of covered that earlier.
Jealousy, I actually have done a lot of work on myself and around that. And I think a lot of it could come from, it's like self-esteem, and it can be shame. There can be mistrust, or also comparing yourself to others, even in ways that you may not realize or that you think would be related to jealousy. I think the core emotional issue with jealousy is, as you might expect, abandonment.
With every issue, it seems like.
Well,
right?
there's a lot of that, and emotional, is because that's the fear, is that you're going to lose the one you love. And what can happen is when you have to go back in, and usually if your jealousy was anything as bad as mine was, it really is an earlier childhood job to get in and help that kid feel recognized, acknowledged, all the things we kind of held up.
Well, jealousy in particular comes from not feeling good enough. So you're always going to be comparing to other people.
Yeah.
Like, am I good enough? Are they, they're better than I am.
And what may have happened is when you didn't live up to a parent's expectation, they withdrew their love. And that was all a very subtle, it wasn't very obvious. So what ended up happening is when you didn't live up to some standard, then love was withdrawn. And that
Or
all
you
goes
were,
on.
or they just ignored you.
Yeah, which is a type of
Yeah.
withdrawal of love. There's so many ways it can go down that can be subtle. And what the work that it would take to go in and just give your inner child, your vulnerable self, the attention and the reassurance and the encouragement to feel secure and to feel safe and to risk trusting again.
Perfect.
Sweet.
Risk trusting again. Okay.
Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
And yeah.
Let us know if you have any questions. We'll do more videos and workshops, online workshops, couple sessions.
Kisses. I see all these hearts. Thank you.
Retreats.
Love you too.
Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.